E pei lava oi. So fo I le atu nuu lea. A wasi lumana I le lei.
As a result of which, I issued statements saying that they had
Taipisia nuu malolo.
on Saturday and again on Sunday.
E te lo ina le winga le natala. Pena uhu pālangi te mālama lama ai.
Toke mālama lama lelei.
For me, it is a very personal story, and hopefully these stories are things that will open up a different world or a different point of view. I think that's the real power of film.
The emphasis for us at Screen is to train students to become key creatives in the industry, writers, directors and producers. Which is not to say that we don't give them technical knowledge, we do, but that's not our focus. You know, we're situated within the university. We thought that this kind of authorial practice of turning students into storytellers was more critical for us.
The screen production program at the University of Auckland is a 2-year course of study, so students come out with an MA, and the screen production MA runs in parallel with a theory critical studies MA, which is productive, we think, in a university context, as there's a lot of interaction between theory and practice. In their first year, the screen production students are really introduced to every aspect of the filmmaking craft, so from research and pre-production and writing right through to post-production. They come out the other end with a pretty holistic understanding of filmmaking.
It goes without saying that you need to be very, very careful around lights. They're heavy, they get extremely hot.
I'm Alan Cameron. I teach the Introduction to Directing course at postgraduate level. We actually try to get the students to think very critically about the creative possibilities of the medium, to look really closely at films and to think about how a particular effect is created, to think about the kinds of tools that they have available to tell a story and communicate with an audience.
In their second year, the screen students draw on the skills that they've learnt in their first year and extend them into a larger project, a feature film script, a half-hour documentary or a 12 to 15 minute dramatic short.
I chose to go to Auckland University because I thought that there were very good lecturers and that the program itself would give me an opportunity to develop my drama directing interests. I came from a legal background. I'm a qualified lawyer, but I went through a midlife crisis and decided I wanted to look for what might be my passion for the rest of my life. And film and television proved itself to be the calling for me.
I did an exchange, like a formal exchange between Auckland Uni and the Czech Republic. I'd researched the script over there about child trafficking and ended up making this film called Cargo with not much money and not really any expectation. And then it got into a bunch of festivals. I sent it off myself to Venice and London and it got into those, and then it kind of snowballed from there.
If I say my film is about fear, I don't know what angle I have on fear. For writers to feel empowered in the process of writing, you need to put it in a sentence that has a take or an angle. I'm primarily responsible for teaching screenwriting across the program, but it's hard to get students to reach that point where they're confident about their own voice or that they've found their own voice. And how do you then place this voice that within the din of the larger industry?
It really allows you to discover yourself as a writer and just come to terms with the things that interest you so that you have a better grasp on what stories you want to tell and what stories you want to write.
I came back to uni because I wanted to increase my skills as a writer. I've done previous feature films and I figured why not spend the year just writing, just being immersed in storytelling.
The way to approach screenwriting or teaching writing for me is to help students understand not just the mechanics and form of storytelling, but the very impulse behind it. How do you keep something beautiful and personal intact and find a way to situate that into a larger industrial framework.
The previous 2 feature films that I did, the attachment to the characters from audience point of view wasn't as much. And now it's kind of, I'm falling more in love with the characters, and the story kind of is following naturally.
I've never felt more displaced in my life. It's kind of surreal because people look like you but they don't. You speak the same language but they don't. And I've never felt more like a foreigner before.
The idea, of course, for documentary is paramount, and to me ideas are everywhere. If you're active in the world, if you're open to the world, if you're interested in reading, there are ideas everywhere.
My final project, I did it on my grandmother. She's a lady in her early 70s, good classic old Kiwi farmer. Granddad passed away quite a while ago now, but she's been pushing on. There's a bit of drama with the family wanting her to retire.
Smile with the camera now.
Right?
Smile with the camera.
Yeah, right.
So I thought it was a great little story that everyone could relate to about wanting to pursue their personal happiness.
I tend to teach documentary the way I make documentaries myself. I produce, direct, and most often edit my work as well. And I think being introduced to a range of skills helps students in every aspect of the documentary craft.
When I was studying screen production, my thesis film was on boy racer culture in Auckland City, and that was called Cruise Control. It was a fantastic opportunity to see a totally different side of life. Subsequent to that film, I've started a production company with another filmmaker, Brian March, and we've recently had a film in international distribution. That film's called There Once Was an Island, Te Whenua e Norfolk, and it's a climate change story set on an island off the coast of Bougainville, looking at the experiences of the community there.
He doesn't want me to leave him behind.
There was something about documentary that had an appeal because I was working with real people and you collaborate a lot as well. And the people that you meet almost always have a really either traumatic or an interesting story to tell you, and working in their lives and having them invite you into their lives is a really good feeling for me. A small town in the South Island had to deal with the rising waters behind the Clyde Dam in the 80s, and some of them are still really haunted by it. So I went down retrospectively 20 years later and talked to them about how they felt about it.
Our students are fairly ambitious technically, so we've been able to provide them with a range of cameras which let them explore fully their ideas, such as the Red Epic, our most recent purchase, and also Sony F3 and several other high-end cameras. In terms of post-production, we have multiple offline suites which students have 24-hour access to. Then we also have a second tier of facilities which include a DaVinci Resolve color grading suite and a Pro Tools suite for audio post-production. This allows them to finish their projects to a very high standard.
We've had wonderful success with our students getting placement in the industry as well. And this is also largely because we as staff who are practicing filmmakers constantly endeavour to close the gap between the industry and the academy.
I've been selected for an internship with South Pacific Pictures.
I've helped to create what is the Documentary Film Festival.
After that, I started work at the business school at Auckland University where I make video.
I went on to work at the Screen Directors Guild of New Zealand.
I've started doing, in the last couple of years, started making TVCs.
At this point now, we're all quite excited as we have 2 new drama directing teachers beginning in the new year, and what we hope is that the program will continue to flourish and grow.